In this video, we're going to create a histogram to represent the frequency that the hours for each part or each brand and type occurs. So, to do that, let's just set up a little table here. We'll put a label up here, frequency, and we'll have a heading bin and a count in the second column. Now in our bin, we want to start with our minimum value, but we might want to make it a nice looking value. So what we can do is, let's first of all put in a minimum function, and we want to select the minimum that's in column 3. Don't need to make that absolute, but let's just click enter. Now the minimum is actually 300, so in this case that's not too bad. If it was 320, for example, we might want to put a round function on it so that the actual value was 300. We also want to determine what the increment will be for our bins. Now that will depend on what our maximum is, and if we say we want to have, say, 7 bins for the data which we want to count each occurrence of, we will need to determine what our maximum is. So over here somewhere, let's just determine what our maximum value is and hit enter. So our maximum is 1,000, and so in this case it's really quite nice. We've got, let's say we want 7 rows, so our increment is going to be equal to our maximum minus our minimum divided by 7, and in this case we'll get a nice rounded number of 100. If that wasn't the case, if we wanted to round that number, we could also add another option there to round that to a particular number of significant figures. We could also put this 7 in as a dynamic value, so enter that into a cell somewhere so that we could change the configuration so that it looked quite pretty. For now though, let's just leave it as it is, and we'll just increment this down, so the next cell under the 300 will be equal to that 300 plus the value in our increment here, and we'll F4 that. Let's just fill that down 7 times till we get down to 1,000, and we'll leave it down. We'll leave the 1100 out for now, and what we're going to do is select cells row 3 column 14 down to row 11 column 14. Now the reason we're selecting that is because we're looking at the number of times the values in our hours column occur between, in this case, 300 and 400 for this cell here. This cell here will be between 400 and 500, etc., until we get down to here, and this one will be just above 1,000. I could have actually put 1100 in there, but that's okay. So we're going to enter equals frequency. You'll see that that comes up, and the data array is our hours column. We can F4 that just to make it look a little bit tidier. And then our bins array is this data here. We only need to go down to row 10. So we come across here, that's just row 10. So now we close that bracket and we make this an array formula, and Control-Shift-Enter will automatically enter that as the array formula. Okay, so this is now our data set for our histogram. So to create our histogram, we just highlight that data. We don't really need this last one. That's really just a bit of a safety valve, as they refer to it in the textbook. So we'll go to Insert, and we're going to insert it as a column chart. Now when we do that, it automatically selects the two columns as the data series, but that's in fact wrong. We only want the second column as our data series, and we want the X values. So up here in the series formula, you'll see that there are no X values entered. So we just click in between those two commas and select these values here to represent our X values, and then hit enter, and you'll see we have our bin dividers, if you like, between each of the ranges. Now we can manipulate that to make it look more like a histogram. So we have change our overlap, or gap width is what we want, so decrease our gap width. We can just make that a little bit nicer, and then we can make these values, we can align them to be we want them to be at the top, and we want them to be vertical. Vertical the other way around, so let's rotate 370. But we actually, if we make them now left, then it's a little bit hard to tell. We actually want them to be over to the left one, but well, let's leave it for now at this, and this is our histogram of our hourly data, or the data that represent the hours for each brand and type.